Let's get it going. Welcome. You know what it is. It's the Deeper Dive presented by Awesemo.com. I'm Dave Lochran. Just filled my belly with some delicious chicken franchise. Pretty tasty, I must say. You got to be on a full stomach doing this show, Adam. Things are about to get out of control. How you doing, man? That's Adam Sharp, by the way.
Doing good. Didn't eat a lot, but got beer, so I'm happy.
I guess that's all you need, huh?
Yeah, Josh was disappointed this morning that I was only drinking coffee, so I felt obligated.
Are you an early morning beer drinker?
No, no,
No?
not at all.
Okay.
But
I
he
wasn't sure.
commented
Like
on drinking
when
my
do you start? Like 10, 11 a.m.? Or do you wait till noon?
coffee. Yeah, I mean, gotta wait till noon, right? Anything else is ridiculous.
Ricky says, "What the f is chicken franchise?" Well, it's definitely not spelled like that, but it's Francese. Not like the name of a neighborhood. Uh, anyway, let's get into it, Adam. We've got 10 games on the docket. We're glad to have all of you with us, by the way. I am trying to wait till it populates a little bit since we started a little bit earlier, but we should be good to go. Do we have the tweet? I don't think the tweet dropped yet.
It did.
Did it?
Yeah, unless it disappeared. I retweeted it.
Huh. I didn't see it. Are we mentioned in it?
The Periscope tweet dropped.
Oh, okay. Okay.
YouTube's been,
Wow.
a little slow.
All right. Well, what are you going to do? I'm just going to throw it out here real quick. You guys bear with me. All right. There we go. So, Adam, what are we doing with this slate? We've got 10 games. You've got Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Warriors, and the Bucks against the Warriors in a game that has a 240 total, the highest on the slate by 16 points. And then, of course, you've got guys like Kevin Durant, whose price has come down, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. No Joel Embiid resting against his biggest foe in basketball, Andre Drummond. Whew, this is an interesting one. But yeah, not including Embiid, who is out. You have 6 guys above 10K on DraftKings. 2 of them are on the Warriors. And on FanDuel, your top priced guys, Davis at a 12-9, Giannis at 12-2, Westbrook at 11-3, and then LeBron rounds out the 11K players. Durant, Kawhi Leonard are in the 10K range, and then Curry's at 9,900.
Yeah, and plenty of value too with Whiteside out and with Embiid out. So I think it's a pretty interesting slate, and it's big enough that even popular guys probably won't be too popular. So I think it should actually be a pretty fun slate, probably the best we've had in a while.
I think so too. All right, let's get into it. We've got first one on the board, Charlotte, Denver. I got to tell you, man, this Charlotte team, when you look at their center rotation, I mean, they aren't going to be able to stop really talented offensive bigs. We saw it with Karl Anthony Towns last time out. Yes, the blocks helped him quite a bit. 6 blocks, I think 2 steals, but he still had a big overall game. Hornets are 1.5 point favorites here at home, 219 total. I want to start with Denver though, and then we'll work our way over to the Hornets. Center, I don't think center's as deep as normal. However, there are a few centers that I really, really, really like. I like Jokic. I don't have him as my top play here, but I do have him as someone that I think makes for a good play in a good spot against the Charlotte team. Again, it doesn't have many rim protectors or good rebounders in the front court. Where do you stand on the Denver squad, talking Jokic and Jamal Murray and the like?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm with you as far as center not being quite as deep today as it normally is. This is a really weird slate on, well, I mean, on both sites, but like thinking about DraftKings where you have the multi-position eligibility, there's value at center that's multi-position eligible, and normally we would want to use them at forward, but I'm not really convinced that's necessarily the case today because you have so many spots to pay up at forward, whether it's Giannis or Davis or LeBron, whoever you prefer, Durant too. So I think it's, just kind of an interesting spot where I like Jokic. He's one of my favorite centers. I think it's a perfectly good matchup for him. But there are a couple of things I don't like. For one, when you're kind of just comparing him across positions, obviously you have to factor in those other guys that I mentioned. But also Denver on the front half of a back-to-back. So I have Jokic projected for 32 minutes. I don't feel confident in projecting him for more than that just because we've seen Malone run, a little bit flatter rotations and say that that's been intentional on back-to-backs. So not quite as high on Jokic there, but he is still one of my favorite centers.
Yeah, me too. We're obviously going to talk about Andre Drummond with Joel Embiid off the court. That could make a sizable difference. We'll get to that shortly. Throughout the rest of this game, though, we have no Gary Harris. He's been ruled out a while ago. And then you have Will Barton, who is still out and looks like he might still be more than a week or two away from returning. So you've got both of them out. And aside from that, this team doesn't have that much appeal. Yes, Jamal Murray's in a decent spot, but I keep finding myself leaning towards some point guards that we'll get to momentarily. I don't think it's a bad spot. I don't hate him, but I guess the question here is, would you rather play a $7,100 Jamal Murray in this game, or would you go to the other side and turn to a Kemba Walker, who, I get it, he has not been great lately. He's definitely come back down to earth, but he's down to $8,000. It's the cheapest he's been since mid-October. And now he faces a Denver team that plays solid defense, but expected to be a very closely contested game. Curious to know where you stand with this point guard position on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I really like both of them because you
Me
have,
too.
I mean, Jamal Murray without Gary Harris, he's playing like 38, 40 minutes a night. Not as concerned about his minutes as about Jokic's. And, it's a perfectly fine spot for him. So I think Jamal Murray's a really good play. But you mentioned Kemba's price tag on DraftKings in particular at only $8,000. I think is just also way too cheap. Like, if we assume this game's going to stay competitive, I think Kemba plays around 38 minutes here. It's not an appealing matchup in terms of the defense that he's facing or the pace at which they play, but the price tag is just too low, based, I think, in part on the matchup and also just because he hasn't been as good lately. But there's no reason to think that, his recent drop off is anything that's going to continue long term. So between the two of them, I like Kemba a little bit more, but there is obviously a $900 price difference. So if you can't quite get up to Kemba, I do like Jamal Murray quite a bit, and he's shooting guard eligible, which obviously makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I feel like Jamal Murray is a perfectly reasonable play. I like Jamal Murray here. The one thing I also love about Jamal Murray is just the fact that his minutes have been through the roof recently. And whenever you're getting heavy run as a ball handling point guard, it just puts way more value on your back. Whereas before, he was someone whose minutes were kind of all over the place. Last game went to overtime. He, no question, played all 5 minutes in overtime. But he also, you look at the second half here, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. He played like 21 minutes of 24 minutes available in the second half. And in the first half, he sat for 3.5 minutes, Adam. So don't even include overtime. And Jamal Murray's playing 41 minutes in regulation now in back-to-back games.
Right. And we've his normal baseline when Harris is in has been around 36 minutes, but we've seen consistently when Harris is out that he picks up a few more minutes. And that's, why I'm interested in him here. I think he's a really good play. For context on him between Kemba, I have my DraftKings projections in front of me, but I have Murray projected for 40 DraftKings points. I have Kemba projected for 46. So a big enough difference where I would rather get the Kemba if I can, but Murray still comes in as a very good play at this price.
That's exactly where I'm at. I have no issue with either of them. And then similarly, with Jokic and with Andre Drummond, where do you have those two projected? Because even though they're not in the same game, they're both closely enough priced.
Yeah, I have them projected almost identical, right around like 48, 49 DraftKings points.
I have Jokic at 49 and Drummond at 47, but I mean, it's really hard to not get to Drummond in spots like this. And the reason for that is that Drummond on DraftKings is now, I won't say significantly cheaper, but he kind of is, right? He's $700 cheaper than Nikola Jokic. To me, that's a pretty big difference. And on FanDuel, where Jokic is 95, Drummond's also $700 cheaper. So just from a value standpoint, Drummond does offer a little bit more value, but both of them are solid plays. The rest of this game, and obviously we waited for people to get in. YouTube screwed us up a little bit here. Thanks, Steve. Steve says, great analysis on a daily basis. Thanks for being so on top of it, guys. We try. And I was trying to wait for everyone to get into the room because YouTube messed up a bit, but whatever. I do want to answer these two questions while we wait, though. They'll help the viewers anyway. Kyle had 2 of them. He says, any Hernan Gomez love? Number 1, Adam, go.
No, just he's not a guy that I really look to roster anyway. He doesn't
There's
do a
too
whole
much
lot when he's on the
value this
floor.
slate. Yeah.
Right. And then, with all the other value out there, I don't have interest there.
And then this one was pretty reasonable. I don't know if everyone's dealing with a situation like this, but because they're similarly priced in a vacuum, LaMarcus Aldridge or Jamal Murray in cash.
Let me look.
In cash.
In cash. Let me see what I have Aldridge projected at. But probably, my guess is that I'm going to say Murray, just because he plays more minutes. Actually, I have Aldridge projected for a few more points. I would lean Aldridge there.
I have Aldridge projected for a few more points. I think he's safer, but I think he's safer here. But I also see Murray with those minutes being pretty equally. I actually should probably. I have Murray projected for 37 minutes, and I don't know. I should probably up that a little bit. What do you?
So for me, if you're talking about just like a utility spot where you have to choose between the two of them, I would go Aldridge. The main argument against, or I guess in favor of Murray in this spot, is that there is a lot more opportunity cost on this slate at the center and power forward positions. So if you're just like starting a lineup and saying, which one of those guys would you rather have, I would probably I would try it with Murray first so that I can get the value like Bam and like, the other guys that we'll talk about. But in a vacuum, like if we're just talking utility spot, I would take Aldridge.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Anyone else from this game?
I just wanted to walk it back real quick on your Jokic versus Drummond question. I think I had Drummond projected for a couple too many minutes just based on what he's been playing lately. So I do have Drummond where you have him right around 47 DraftKings points.
47. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, still at 8,600, that's not bad at all whatsoever. So, it's definitely a spot where we're going to get to, and we're going to talk about it at length. Do you want to move on from this game? Is there anyone we've yet to talk about?
That's the only guys from this game that I plan on prioritizing. Like, I think Millsap is fine. This is a spot where he could get a couple of minutes at the 5, which lets him get up around 30 to 32 minutes. I think that especially if Williams is out, Jeremy Lamb is fine. Cody Zeller is okay. Is on DraftKings at 4K. But the only guys that I plan on that I would expect to prioritize here would be Kemba, Murray, and Jokic potentially.
Right. And on another slate, Cody Zeller could offer a good amount of value. But again, we have guys opening up in that same price range that just seem to be better fits with higher ceilings in this spot. So definitely not prioritizing him. Let's talk Orlando and Indiana. This is one of those games where I had to keep reminding myself it was on the slate, Adam. You have the Pacers are actually 2.5 point dogs to the Magic. How about that? Orlando, 2.5 point home favorite, and a plump 205 point total here in Orlando. I mean, this one, this is not exactly the best game to analyze, but I will throw out that guys like Miles Turner will probably go vastly overlooked on a slate like this. He's still affordable. He's looked very solid recently, and Sabonis is still questionable with an illness, so I don't know if he's going to play. That's something I'm paying very close attention to. Where are you at on this game? Start wherever you like more.
I mean, I hate this game, but the centers are where I'm most interested. Turner's played 32 and 34 minutes in his last 2 games, and that's with Sabonis playing. So I have him, at 32 minutes here. I would bump him up to 34 probably if Sabonis sits. But either way, I think he's a reasonable option. There's plenty I like more than him, but if I have to take someone from Indiana, I would look to Miles Turner. And then similarly from the other side, I don't like Vucevic quite as much as I like Drummond or Jokic, but I still think that there's upside for Vucevic, who over the last month has a 28.5% usage rate and a 21.5% rebounding percentage, just getting everything done out there. But he has kind of the same issue where he probably is going to play 32 minutes here. It's really unlikely that you get, like 36 out of him like you can from some other guys. So he has to be just more efficient than some other players in his price point in really a slow-paced game. So nothing that stands out to me, but the starting centers on both teams are where I would be most interested.
Me too, particularly Turner. And the reason I say that is because while I like Vooch, I come back to the same idea of there are similarly priced guys, Drummond, that I like a little bit more on a slate like this. Vooch has just been unbelievably dominant this year. He's posting career highs in a lot of numbers, potential assists. His usage is way up. He's playing big minutes every night. I tell you this much. You look at you look at the coaching carousel that they've had there for a long time. Steve Clifford is actually doing a good job managing his front court rotation. And you know what? A team that might not be that good is currently sitting 7th place. They're 12-13, but they're competing and they're favorites tonight against the Oladipo-less Indiana Pacers. But I'll tell you, if Sabonis does sit, and this isn't like one of these little nagging injuries that he played through and was listed as questionable every game. If he does happen to sit with this illness, uh, it's definitely hard not to have some love for Miles Turner. I mean, I know you talked about him a bit there, but Turner's a $6,400 on DraftKings, 78 on FanDuel is a bit rich for my blood, but 6,400 is a really nice price point against an Orlando front court that, while Vooch has been very, very solid, overall as an offensive player this year, you're not getting that same type of defense from him. So I definitely have no issues whatsoever with Miles Turner. What about if Sabonis plays? Would you still have interest in Turner?
Yeah, I mean, Turner's been playing big minutes lately, even with Sabonis in. We're just seeing them play more minutes alongside each other. So he would get a boost if Sabonis is out because he's not playing alongside Sabonis. But I think the minutes should be there regardless.
Me too. But I definitely give him a steep upgrade if Sabonis is out. So that's something to keep in mind. The rest of this game, as you just highlighted, is not something I'm really targeting. Aaron Gordon, he started off good last game, finished with decent numbers. He had 39, not bad, but not great. This is, you know what it is? It's a fadeable spot for guys like Aaron Gordon. It's a fadeable spot for pretty much everyone else. And really anybody in this game you could get away with not playing. It's just, for me at least, the center position is one where I would actually look to target it.
Yep, I agree.
All right. You want to move on then?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers on the road against the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons here are favored. How about that? 1.5 point favorites at home. You got a 220.5 total here. Joel Embiid is out for rest, which is very interesting. I tell you right now, Adam, before we even get into it, Joel Embiid at 10,100. I did the early bird podcast with Dan Stratford last night. We're going to start I know at least when Dan produces, when I'm on with him, we're going to start streaming that live, by the way. So if you're around for it at night around 10:30 or so, you can tune in to that. But it'll be obviously out when you wake up the next morning. You can watch it. Awesome early bird podcast, giving you a fresh look at every slate. But I talked about it extensively before we got this news. Joel Embiid at 10,100 was someone that I was going to have quite a bit of. And now him being out changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. It gives you some value with Mike Muscala here, who it's kind of, I mean, he's not Brook Lopez, but similar to, we talked at length about Brook Lopez the other day and how he's a guy that's going to stretch the floor and pull Drummond away from the basket and get plenty of open looks. Muscala is the same kind of guy. He could certainly have issues on the defensive end. And I think it's a good spot for Drummond as far as just being able to, get to the basket here. But offensively, I think Muscala should have some open looks. He's more appealing on DraftKings where he's power forward eligible, but even on FanDuel, where all season long, and today's no different, we've seen the center position be priced up relative to DraftKings. You get a completely different roster construction if you just take Muscala there, hope he has a good game, but it lets you get to the more expensive forwards instead of having to pay up at center. So I think Muscala is a pretty interesting one here.
Yeah, he definitely is. You're talking about a guy that, since Wilson Chandler's minutes restriction was lifted, since that, when he was playing 30 plus minutes per game, Muscala is still averaging 24 minutes per game over that stretch. I don't expect Amir Johnson to play more than 18, maybe 20 minutes here. I don't know where you're at on him, but I still do not see Brett Brown running him for big minutes. I think the front court, you're going to see 30 plus minutes of Wilson Chandler and 30 plus minutes of Mike Muscala. And then you will see some Amir Johnson at the 5. And then you will probably see some maybe some Furkan Korkmaz or something, but I doubt it. Jonah Bolden might get a couple of minutes here. That's what I would see, but I expect Muscala and Chandler to soak up the large majority of minutes in the front court.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. Amir Johnson, outside of blowouts and weird things happening, basically had lost his center minutes to Muscala. So I'm expecting Muscala to play a bunch of minutes at the 5, Amir to back him up, and then Muscala probably not to play his minutes at the 4 that he had been getting because he had been playing the backup center and backup power forward minutes. So at the 4, I think you get a bunch of Chandler, like you said, and then it'll be either Korkmaz or Simmons playing backup minutes at the 4.
Yeah, and Muscala rebounding really well lately. Look, I'm not saying he's a big or a high per minute producer. However, you don't need crazy per minute numbers from him if you get 30 plus minutes. And I have him around. I think Muscala is going to play around 32 minutes tonight.
I have him at 32.
30. You have him 32. Yeah, that's what I see. It makes the most sense. There's really just no reason to play Amir Johnson for big minutes, knowing that Muscala is capable of doing it. Let's talk Jimmy Butler for a second. I mentioned that I tweeted this out earlier today. It's not like anyone can't find it, but try and make your lives a little bit easier. It was put it in the deep dive as well. Jimmy Butler, since coming to Philly, if you want to talk about massive splits with and without a player on the court, Jimmy Butler is your perfect case study. He's your perfect example. If Butler has played 243 minutes with Joel Embiid this season, 243 minutes. Across those minutes, he has a 19.5% usage rate, sub 20, a 6.7% rebounding rate, and 0.92 fantasy points per minute. In 124 minutes with Embiid off the court, Butler has a 32.2% usage rate. Okay, so it goes up 13%. He has an 11.9% rebounding rate. It doubles, and 1.34 fantasy points per minute. So a what is that? 0.42 increase in fantasy production or in per minute production. Those are massive increases, massive improvements across the board, and you're getting him at a price point with Embiid on the floor. So yes, Detroit plays solid wing defense. They're a good defensive team, but I am entirely overlooking matchup here. Butler just went out and dropped 38 on Toronto. Granted, Danny Green was on him quite a bit instead of Kawhi, but Danny Green's still a good defender. I don't care what it is. Butler at this price point with no Joel Embiid on the floor, given that Ben Simmons is going to see some increases in some numbers, and we'll get to that in a minute, he's still not going to shoot 25 times. He's not going to shoot 20 times, even if Embiid's out. So outside of Redick, Butler's going to see the heaviest usage tonight anyway, but there really aren't many guys on the court that are going to siphon away many field goal attempts. So for me, Jimmy Butler at that price makes a lot of sense in what should be a close game. Where are you at on the non-Muscala players for Philly?
Yeah, I mean, you said it all. The usage for Butler, like we've seen, like Josh and I talked about it this morning before we knew about the Embiid news. And with Butler, it's like you've seen kind of a tale of two games. Like there's games where he just goes out there and dominates possessions, and then there's games where he just goes out there and he's clearly the third guy behind Embiid and Simmons. When Embiid was in, I expected it to be one of those games because I figured Embiid would demand the ball against Drummond just because of past history. But now with him out, there's no reason, and with the numbers that you just talked about, there's no reason not to expect Butler to be the focal point of this offense from a scoring standpoint. Like Simmons just isn't that guy. And JJ Redick gets a usage bump, but he's not that guy either. It's got to be Jimmy Butler here, you would think. Should play big minutes, and he does enough rebounding and picks up enough assists to really round out a stat line as well. So I think that Butler is just, underpriced for his new role. We talk a lot about, people immediately become underpriced when they move into more minutes, and that's clearly the case. But also when in this situation, he's priced for his role on the Sixers, and his role on the Sixers just completely changed.
Yes, exactly. It just completely changed. 100% flipped around. Ricky says, don't worry, Laffy. Someone will still ask you if you think Butler is a good play. Yeah, well, what are you going to do, man? It comes with the territory. Since I just went on a rant about Butler, go ahead and give me your breakdown on Ben Simmons.
I mean, I think he's a good play too. He does get a usage bump. He goes from, about 20.5% up to around 23%. Still, I don't think we'll probably not shoot a 3-pointer. But he's definitely will not shoot a 3-pointer. Definitely. I thought he could have the ball in his hands like at a buzzer.
That doesn't count.
Right. So I mean,
he's never attempted a 3-pointer that wasn't like a half-court buzzer beater attempt.
Right. Point being, like he's still not going to be the guy that carries the offense. He gets a little bit more work, but still not going to carry the offense. It's kind of a similar spot for me for Simmons, a little bit more upside than before, but where you have Butler for a lot cheaper, it's still tough for me to prioritize Simmons.
Right. I still do like Simmons, and I've been preaching this for a while now that as long as people don't play Simmons, myself included, I haven't been playing him either. His price is going to continue to drop.
Yep.
And as that happens, he's going to become more and more viable. We saw the exact same thing with Paul George, and we stuck with Paul George. And he had a monster game the other day because all of the numbers are still there for Paul George to do so. Ben Simmons has the triple-double upside in this game. Again, the matchup I don't care about. I'm more worried about how often you are, bringing the ball up the court, how involved you are. His usage rate with Butler on and Embiid off is only 21.9%, but he still has a 35% assist rate, and his rebounding rate without Embiid this year is 15.5%. So he sees about a 2% jump in total rebounding rate as well. I like that. I still think Simmons can have a very solid game, and there's no question that the rebounding is going to improve. He's still a great facilitator, but we both agree that if you're choosing between Butler or Simmons, it is Butler. Now, one more thing I wanted to add to this. Butler and Simmons have basically played almost all of their minutes together since Butler came over. Simmons has played 134 minutes with Embiid off the court since Butler arrived, and 120 of those minutes have been with Butler on the court. So only 14 minutes with both Butler and Embiid off the court. The reason I say this, Adam, is I would not be at all surprised to see Butler and Simmons minutes a little bit more staggered than they were when Embiid was healthy, because Embiid was the one that was pulled off the court in 4 or 5 minutes. Butler and Simmons would run to 9 minutes, 10 minutes, or 9 minutes and a half into the first quarter, and then Embiid would come back and then play with them off. But I wouldn't be surprised to see the rotation change a little bit in terms of staggering those minutes because Embiid, their top scorer, is off the court.
I think that's a really, really good call. So basically what it means from a DFS standpoint is that we can run with these baseline numbers that we have, but there's potential for it to be
exactly
even better.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's just something to keep in mind. You don't necessarily get the exact same rotation just because somebody is out. When it's your best scorer out, your coach is going to do something to try and neutralize or mitigate that loss. Anything else? You spoke a lot about Muscala. We broke everyone else down. I mean, I think Redick is always a fine tournament play without Embiid. He's going to get shots up. Any thoughts on him or Wilson Chandler or anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I think Redick's fine. I'm not prioritizing him on this slate, but he does get a bump in usage without Embiid on the floor. Even if you look at Embiid off the floor and Simmons on, you have about a 26% usage rate for Redick this season. So he does get a nice bump. It's just that on a 10-game slate with a bunch of value, I'm still not jamming JJ Redick in the lineups. All
right, let's talk about the Pistons. I got some interesting stuff on the Pistons, so this will be fun. I'm interested
to see if we're on the same page on something.
On Drummond?
No.
Okay, on the backcourt?
No.
So
well, wings.
Oh, on wings. I'm not interested. So we'll get there. Now, I see that smirk. There must be something you got up your sleeve. We'll start with the front court. Drummond, we know Embiid talked about owning space in Drummond's head and this and that, which isn't necessarily untrue. But now you have Embiid off the court. Drummond leads the league in rebounds, in rebound chances, in contested rebounds, and most of them he leads by a wide margin. He's also second in the league in second chance points and third in the league in points in the paint. Why do you mention this, Laffy? Somebody may ask. Well, I will tell you why. Because with Joel Embiid off the court, and this is applicable for Blake Griffin as well, who scored 88 points in 2 games against the Sixers this season. With Joel Embiid off the court, you're relying on Mike Muscala and Wilson Chandler and Amir Johnson to contain this front court. I just don't see how that's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a more appealing spot for Drummond here. Not that Embiid, from a overall standpoint, not that Embiid has really slowed down bigs this year either, from a fantasy standpoint, but him being out certainly doesn't hurt. The only negative that I could throw out there is that Muscala is going to hang out around the 3-point line. But even that, I don't think is, I don't think it's as concerning, especially when you talk about Wilson Chandler being the 4. Like, nobody really needs to defend him, so Blake can go chase around Muscala if potentially. Right. So, not really concerned about it there.
Dwayne Casey's not going to let Mike Muscala chase Drummond off the court. I can assure you of that.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, I was thinking more about just pulling him away from the basket.
Gotcha.
From a rebounding standpoint.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, it's just a spot where you're kind of nitpicking if you're trying to find reasons not to like Drummond here.
Right. Exactly. What about Blake? He's had 2 monster games against the Sixers. 30 of his 39 made baskets against the Sixers this year have come in the paint. So he's doing a ton of damage in the paint. No surprise. As you mentioned, they've faltered there defensively. And now that Embiid is out, they're going to have a really tough time. You don't have really any rim protecting bigs. You have no real shot blocking bigs. Where are you at on Blake? Because I find myself liking both of them. I just have a tough time justifying both of them in the same lineup.
I don't have a problem with Blake. I do think it's worth pointing out that both times they played before, it was Dario Saric playing. Wilson Chandler is a step up defensively from Saric. Not that I expect him to stop Blake, but I think it's just worth mentioning for people that are looking at those 2 games. I think Blake's fine. The problem for me is just kind of like I mentioned with LaMarcus Aldridge, but to an even bigger extent because Blake is more expensive. There's a lot of good value at power forward today. Like on DraftKings, you can roster both value centers with you can roster Bam, Olynyk, and Muscala all at power forward. Even on FanDuel, you can roster Bam at power forward. So there's good value there, and it makes it tough to make that a position to spend up at. But if you can make it work, there's no reason not to like Blake.
Right. I'm just not huge on putting them both in the same lineup tonight, and the only reason for that is there are a lot of good plays. I think this will be a high-scoring night, and it's tough to get both of them in the same lineup when they're both going to be competing for a lot of the same stats in the front court. That's not to say both of them can't have big games, but I don't think you get ceiling games from both of them here. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I like both. I obviously prefer Drummond. Drummond is my top center on this slate. Where do you have Drummond ranked among centers on this slate?
Top 3. He's up there with Jokic. It's like neck and neck for the top, expensive guy.
I have Drummond edging out Jokic, but it's close. But he's still my number 1 right now. Obviously, talking top tier guys, not our value guys. Talk to me about? We'll get to the backcourt last. Talk to me about. I don't know. Is it Stanley Johnson you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I mean, it's Stanley. Okay, so I'm prefacing it with it's Stanley Johnson. We never really know how he's going to produce, but the minute should be there. Like the minutes have kind of been there anyway, but with Bullock out and with Ish Smith out, the minutes should be there for Johnson. I think he plays 30 to 32 minutes here. But what really stood out to me was over the last month, he has a usage rate up over 28%. If you look at the last 4 games he's played, he's at 28.8, 30.1, 32.1, and 28.8 again. Double-digit field goal attempts in 3 straight games, 16 of them in 2 of those. And he still last game he came off the bench, so still getting some time out there without Drummond or Blake. I just think that he goes completely overlooked here too. That's as a product of other value opening up. I think he probably would have been somewhat popular early on in the day, but with more value opening, you get people switching from Stanley Johnson to those other guys, and it's still, I think, a pretty nice spot for Stanley Johnson in terms of minutes and potential productivity.
Exactly. I think it's a good point. However, I think a lot of those voided minutes are going to go to Bruce Brown. I do. I think Bruce Brown is a capable ball handling guard who's going to soak up a lot of run today. Now, that's not
how many minutes do you have? How many minutes do you have for Bruce Brown?
29.
Oh God, yeah, I have like 18. But I also gave minutes. Did you give minutes to Calderon?
Yeah, not a lot though. I think Bruce Brown gets a lot of minutes tonight, man. I do.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay, so how many minutes do you have Stanley Johnson at?
28.
Okay.
What do you have at 30?
30 or 32. I'm trying to figure out. Do you have Luke Kennard minutes?
Let me check.
I'm just trying to figure out where like your 10 Bruce Brown minutes came from.
With Ish Smith, I'd have to look into it. With Ish Smith, you're losing about 22 minutes around, and then Reggie Bullock. what is it? He was playing up around 30, right?
Yeah, he's like 32.
I'd have to look. But yeah, I put it this way. I still have I have Bruce Brown playing a good amount of minutes, but here's why. I think he's going to play some backup point guard minutes. And I guess here's what it comes. Well, this might be it. How many minutes do you have Reggie Jackson at?
34.
Okay, see, I have him way less than that.
Okay.
I have Reggie Jackson around 28, and that is only because I don't feel confident that Dwayne, and I like Reg. I actually think Reggie Jackson's a pretty good play at this price point, just to be clear. But I don't feel confident that Dwayne Casey's just going to shoot his minutes through the roof. So we'll see. That's where we're different though. But yeah, I think Jackson's minutes stay somewhat similar to what they were. But I like regardless. I like what did I say 28 for Bruce Brown? I meant 26. But
okay, yeah.
I meant 26. But I like Reggie Jackson. I think he's fine at that price, even if he plays 28, maybe 30 minutes. But I like the call on Stanley Johnson more so because you mentioned the usage. We've never seen really Stanley Johnson get up there with actually playing with a lot of usage, getting shots up, and that definitely makes a difference. It sucks that he's not a good shooter, but you could do a whole lot worse.
Yeah, it was like I noticed it in their last game. I just happened to be looking and was like, where the hell did like all this usage come from for Johnson? And then now he actually has minutes to play too.
Agreed.
I did misspeak though. He's at 23.6% over the last month. He's at 28% over that like handful of games that I mentioned.
Right,
but still 23.6.
No, yeah. Conversation in chat about Simmons' usage going up without Embiid. It goes up maybe 1%. If you're talking about assists and such, that's not factored into usage. It's basically whatever ends a possession. Think of it that way. So I still like him, but no, his usage with Butler on the court does not go up. Well, if you want to count, what does it go up like 1%?
It goes up a little bit. It goes from like, off the top of my head, I think it's like 20.8 to like 22 and change.
It goes up. No, it goes up with Simmons and Butler on the court, because it doesn't matter if you're not including Butler in it. You're running bad numbers.
Right.
With Simmons and Butler on the court, it is 21.9%. With Simmons, Butler, and Embiid on the court, it is so 21.9% with Embiid off, 20% with him on. So it goes up 1.9%.
Yeah.
So yes, it does increase, but it's not like it's nothing. It's not even close to Butler, which is insane. So just so we're clear, I still think Simmons is a good play. I think there's a miscommunication in chat. The argument that usage doesn't go up doesn't mean he's not a good play. It's just assist rate does not count as usage. That's all. Anything else from this one? I think we broke it down pretty extensively.
Reggie Jackson, we both think is a good play. 32 minutes probably is the safer or better projection than the 34 I said, so I did cut him back. But yeah, I think the price tag on Jackson is just too cheap.
Okay, so do I. FanDuel too, he's 5,500.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Cleveland, Sacramento. Let's talk about it. You have the Cleveland Cavaliers, 3-point dogs at home, 223 total. This is actually the third highest total on the entire slate. Spurs and Lakers, 224. That's at even money. And then, of course, Milwaukee Golden State's at 239.5. But you got the Kings on the road against the Cavs. And, now that George Hill has come back, it's just thrown a wrench into the works because he's getting minutes, but he's doing nothing with those minutes. I mean, I guess Clarkson and Sexton are still getting minutes. Don't get me wrong. Their minutes haven't really changed much at all. Alec Burks is playing, 23, 26 minutes. It's just a tough team to get a firm grasp on. And Rodney Hood's getting run, but as I say every single show, you're relying solely on scoring, and a lot of times he doesn't score enough points, but he is cheap, so.
Right. I mean, I think in tournaments there's definitely value here that you can use, just because I would expect this.
Domantas Sabonis ruled out, Adam.
That's interesting.
Sorry, I didn't mean to, I always got to interject when we get big.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, from the Cleveland side, I think there's some tournament value where I'm not getting to this Cleveland team in cash games just because the rotation's spread out enough and volatile enough that I think there's more clear value. But in tournaments, that gives you kind of lower owned guys like Sexton, like Jordan Clarkson, that are interesting. So I do like Clarkson in tournaments quite a bit. I like Sexton as well. He's underpriced, I think, for a pace up game, but purely tournament plays from this team.
Yeah, me too. By the way, because this chat is, or the conversation is erupting in chat, Andrew Barron, Hot Magic, and myself actually came up with a stat that factors assist percentage and potential assists into usage. Basically, points involved in per possession, and it's a really cool stat. We're gonna try and get it out there to the public, but it's very cool, and it's something that, because usage can be very misleading with guys like Simmons, it factors in, basically everything that constitutes fantasy production, and then with centers factoring in blocks and defensive stats as well. But yeah, we'll see about that. We've been working and talking about it for a while. Yeah, tournament plays there. For Sacramento, I think Bogdanovich still makes sense, Adam. He's been very good lately, and this game is projected to stay close, so I think you get another 30-plus minutes from him. Is there anyone else for Sacramento, or even Bogdanovich, that you like?
Nothing I'm prioritizing from the Sacramento side. I think their price tags have finally caught up to their levels of productivity, and this is a huge pace down game for them on a massive 10-game slate. So I'm more interested actually in the Cleveland side than the Sacramento side, as weird as that is.
I don't think it's weird. It's a game that doesn't really make me too excited. Bogdanovich is one guy that I do like just because of how well he's been playing. I really like his game. You had mentioned a couple of times he's getting backup point guard minutes, which is pretty nice. All of that factors into it. But with that said, you're right. It's just not a game. Even with one of the higher totals on the slate, it's just so hard to predict where the numbers are going to come from in Cleveland. And even when they do, none of them have like these meg ceilings where it's totally worth it in cash. Or I'm sorry, not feeling. None of them have these floors where it's worth it in cash. It's really, you're just throwing darts in tournaments and hoping one of them catches fire.
Right.
All right, let's keep it going here. By the way, if you wanted to check out, all of our articles and our ownership and the projections and everything that we have behind paywall at awesemo.com, all you got to do is use that promo code in the bottom right corner of the screen. It says Deeper Dive, one word, Deeper Dive. Go onto our homepage at awesemo.com, click join now, and click the plan, check the plan that you want, and then you'll be prompted to enter a promo code. It is Deeper Dive, all one word, and you can get a free week behind paywall, totally free of charge. All right, let's keep it moving here. By the way, a little bit of news here that is pretty interesting, and I actually really, really like this. Amir Johnson is starting for Embiid. This is going to scare people off of Muscala. I guarantee you Muscala still gets 30-plus minutes.
I'm not as confident in 30-plus. I think maybe 26-plus.
Yeah, I bet. No, I bet Amir plays like the first 5 minutes, and then Muscala comes in and plays a big stretch. Amir comes back in for like 3 or 4 minutes. I bet Amir plays no more than like 4.5 minutes at a time in stretches.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It could just make it so it's easier to stagger the rotation and get Muscala potentially minutes alongside Amir as well.
That would be my thinking. I just don't look. If Amir Johnson plays like 25-plus minutes, I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked. I'll take the L if he does. Don't worry. You know where to find me. I just don't think that's going to happen.
It does, I think. The one thing I think it changes is that Amir Johnson's a min-price power forward on FanDuel, where obviously you can drop him. I think maybe worth the risk there, just because even playing around with it from like a roster construction standpoint, I've had some lineups where I'm like, I wish I had a power forward that I thought could potentially have a good game.
Fair enough. I'm not saying Muscala is going to produce in his minutes, but like if you're thinking that Amir plays more minutes than Muscala, I think you're very mistaken. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Unless it's like Brett thinks that Amir can guard Andre Drummond better, but that doesn't make sense either. I don't know. We'll see. But all I'm saying is just because Amir's starting does not mean that I'm super worried about Muscala because he's really cheap. and he can still get 30 minutes here. So we'll see, but I don't think it changes a ton. I still would be surprised to see Amir play more than I had him at 18 to 20 minutes earlier today. And if that's the case, Muscala's still going to play some minutes at the 4. So where else are those minutes going? You'd have to be projecting Amir Johnson for much heavier minutes to think that Muscala doesn't get what you need.
Right. I had them just splitting center minutes, but I think that this could just be that Muscala was playing more at the 4 than I had projected, which was 0.
Okay, fair enough. Let's keep it going then. Toronto and Brooklyn. Toronto, unsurprisingly, favored by 9 points on the road. Very good basketball team. 221 total. Do you have interest in either side of this game?
No, I mean, Kawhi is fine. I'm not going to talk anyone off of Kawhi, but we've talked about how Lowry takes a huge hit whenever Kawhi is healthy. Same really goes for Ibaka, and Siakam takes a hit as well, and his price tags come up. The one spot where I think it could be interesting is if we get news that Valanciunas is starting, which I have no idea he could, but it's been really difficult to predict what Nick Nurse does. So if we get news he's starting, then that is potentially interesting. But outside of that, really just Kawhi from the Toronto side. And then if you wanted to take a chance on like a $6,900 D'Angelo Russell on DraftKings, I think that's fine in tournaments, but certainly know where I'm getting to in cash games.
Yeah, me neither. I think Serge Ibaka is a decent play against Brooklyn. A value play that I should mention, Jonas Valanciunas is very interesting to me. He played 18 minutes against the Sixers, had 26 and 8. I mean, if there's ever a guy that can just put up huge minutes or huge numbers in low minutes, it's him. The crazy thing is though, like he had 26 points in 18 minutes and still only played 18 minutes. So yeah.
That's a really good point. I would have never thought to bring up Valanciunas. So good call.
I heard you talking about Jovel. I just wanted to give you my 2 cents on him as well. That's not true. I didn't. Somebody in chat accused me of stealing his idea when I was talking about the usage thing, which we came up with over a year ago. So blame it on him, not me. So what do you think of Jovel?
I think that if he starts,
I'm kidding, dude. I'm kidding. Yeah. My bad. Look, at least you stopped me. That's better than not stopping. And I had Josh DMing me, telling me, "Good job listening." Hey, it's the first time I've done it in 5 games. We're 5 games in. It's my first mess up.
And I can't say anything
I'm not doing that bad.
The other day, I learned when I was trying to read chat, and I just didn't even know you were talking to me.
It's tough, right? Like you literally just one track it, and then you like there's voices in your head, which is you, of course, but you just
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, you just don't know what's going on, man. Like the fact that I didn't even hear the name Valanciunas when you were speaking says a lot. It's tough. But yeah, you try reading chat and responding to, and then I have people in chat yesterday like, do these guys even read chat? Listen, man, multitasking's harder than it looks. But yeah, that's it. Did you mention Ibaka? I'm being serious here.
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of in the same breath as Valanciunas. Like if Ibaka starts, I really like him. If Valanciunas starts, it takes a few minutes away from Ibaka, and I like him less.
It's kind of crazy though that like maybe you said this too, but since I didn't hear you, I'm going to say it again. That the guy can have monster games, and Nick Nurse is still like, nah, you're good at 18 minutes.
Talking about Valanciunas?
Jovel, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's been so, like Josh and I were talking about it this morning, it's been so difficult to predict when Valanciunas is going to start because Ibaka can play the 5 in pretty much any of these matchups. Valanciunas can only play it in certain ones, but it's not like Valanciunas is getting 100% of the starts when he can be on the floor.
Right. All right. Is there anything else you want to talk about in this game? I mean, it's kind of ugly, and I don't have much faith in any Brooklyn players facing this Toronto squad.
No. Yeah, that's it. Just tournament stuff for me, and Russell's too cheap for his ceiling, but still needs a lot to go right.
All right. How about the Thunder on the road? The Bulls hosting this OKC team, 219.5 total. Thunder are 8-point favorites here, coming off of a come-from-behind win over Brooklyn, where Russell Westbrook had a monster 21, 15, and 17 triple-double, but Paul George was the story of that game. 47 points. what did he do? Like 20? What did he score? Like 28 in the fourth quarter or something insane?
Yeah, something like that.
Something nuts, man. He had 15 rebounds, 4 assists, 77 DraftKings points. He just erupted. This was a guy that, again, in the same breath as Simmons, his price had been trending downwards because of blowouts. Even though he'd been getting run, or even though we know that he's going to get minutes in close games and be the number 2 guy. His price is up over 9K again on DraftKings, though, Adam. He's on FanDuel, he's 9,300, which I still think is pretty palatable. But on a slate like this, where you are prioritizing a bunch of guys above the 8K range, what do you do with a Paul George? What are you doing with Russell Westbrook here?
Both of them, really. If I get to them, then cool. But for George in particular, the small forward position is just so stacked, and his price point's going up that it's kind of tough to get there. For Westbrook, it depends more on the site. On FanDuel, I think it's a bit easier to get to him because he's 11,300 on FanDuel, which is, I believe, actually $100 less than on DraftKings. But more importantly than that, it's that Giannis is 12.2, Davis is 12.9. Whereas on DraftKings, all those guys are in like the same price range, and Westbrook is actually like at the top of it. So I think he's a much more appealing FanDuel play than DraftKings play for me.
Absolutely. 9,300 on FanDuel is a very nice price. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And again, he does still have a high ceiling, even with Westbrook out there. Westbrook, I changed my tone on him a bit last time out because I was looking at ownership, and whenever Westbrook's, expected to be really unpopular, and I think in the $40 on Wednesday, he's like 10% owned. There's something real, low for Russell Westbrook. And I think it's because Middleton was out. It pushed more people on Giannis. Obviously Anthony Davis was popular, and then Westbrook just kind of fell by the wayside. And that's when I really have interest in him. Now, I think Westbrook again is not going to be all that popular of a play, but it's also on this slate, it's kind of tough to prioritize him. I say that, but it's like, honestly, it's tough for me to say that because we all know what Westbrook's capable of doing. But right now we have him projected around 11% ownership. We have Giannis projected around 20% ownership. And then and then LeBron, I think, is pretty far down. I don't think LeBron's very high up at all. Where's LeBron ownership? I can't find it. LeBron at 12%. And Anthony Davis around 17. Now, those are just what we have projected right now. We obviously do updates throughout the day and a final update shortly before lock. What do you think about that? Do you think that makes sense that he's going to come in around 10, 11%?
Yeah. So talking DraftKings, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I think so. Just because it is tougher to get to him than that group. Like it kind of takes effort to play Westbrook over Giannis when Giannis is less expensive.
Yeah. Ricky says, I like Russ when I can bet on him scoring 30, and he hasn't really gotten there this year. Yeah, look, Westbrook's scoring totals have definitely been down a bit, but he also has 70-plus fantasy points twice in his last 4 games with 20, 21, and 23 points. I mean, the dude has 20 rebound upside, 20 assist upside, so I think that mitigates it a little bit. But yeah, obviously it's nicer when Westbrook is scoring a lot more, but he's also not shooting really well either. He's going to have a game where he just gets hot and knocks down everything. So we'll see when that happens. Maybe it'll be tonight. I would never talk you off of Russell Westbrook, put it that way. The other side of this game was Chicago. I don't have anything from this side. Maybe you have something I've missed. Maybe Wendell Carter Jr., but that's it.
Yeah. I was going to say Wendell Carter Jr. at 5,200 power forward on DraftKings is fine, but still a brutal matchup for him, and plenty of other spots to go to there with actually cheaper guys that have upside. So nothing of priority for me from Chicago.
George Hill was just traded to the Bucks.
Really? So Jordan Clarkson, Colin Sexton look even better.
And Matthew Dellavedova to the Cavs.
Larry Nance actually just became a really good play, I think.
Talk to me.
Because he had gotten booted out of the starting lineup when Hill rejoined it, and they slid Chetty down to the 4. Now, I mean, I guess they could just start Burks.
Yeah. Well, that would make Burks kind of interesting, actually, if he starts.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really know if he'd see that many additional minutes.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think more in terms of Nance, especially with Bagley back. This is a big Sacramento team, too. Like, Thompson and Nance next to each other would make even more sense here.
Yeah, it's possible. What a big trade. big trade. That's a slate breaker right there. It's not. I don't know. Should we return? Like, should we talk about that a little bit more?
I mean, I can do it quickly. I think
Yeah, I'll let you just go ahead. You take it.
It depends on the starting lineup. What you're going to want to do. Like Clarkson probably is going to play around his 30 minutes regardless. Burks probably gets a few more minutes here. But where I think you're most likely to see the biggest difference is in Larry Nance, because remember before the George Hill injury, he was out there playing like 36 minutes. Granted,
yeah, Sexton wasn't playing a lot of. Oh, I'm sorry. Who was out there playing 36 minutes?
Well, basically everyone on the Cavs, but Larry Nance.
Right. Nance,
because he was getting back up 5 minutes without Zizic, and he was playing the 4. Once Hill came back, they slid it down so that basically Thompson lost a few minutes. Nance played more at the 5, played less at the 4. If you get Nance starting now, is Zizic still out? I hadn't actually paid attention to that today.
Yes, he is.
Okay, then you would have Nance getting.
Or he's questionable. Questionable. I thought he was out. He's questionable.
Okay. So I think Thompson could get back to like 36, 38 minutes here. I think Nance sees a boost in minutes, and then probably a few minutes for Alec Burks. But a lot's going to depend on the starting lineup. Like if Nance is in the starting lineup, I think he plays a ton of minutes.
So just to point this out, Milwaukee sent Dellavedova and John Henson. By the way, I've always loved John Henson as a backup center, who I think is actually better than the minutes he gets, but they don't really have minutes to go around in Milwaukee. Dellavedova, John Henson, and the first round and future second round pick to the Cavs for George Hill.
They're saving a lot of money.
Is that all it is? Okay. That's got to be it, because my God. I mean, did you hear that, Adam?
Yeah, but it's like a foreign language to me because I don't really follow NBA trades like that.
Okay. Well, I guess I just see Dellavedova, Henson. Not to say that either of those are, marquee players, but a first rounder, future second rounder for George Hill. It's got to be a money thing. Whatever.
They're saving $20 million next year.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Saving $20 million. That makes sense. Fair enough. Let's keep moving then, and we'll talk Memphis and New Orleans. What do you make of this one? We've got Mirotic is going to play. I actually have some interest in the Memphis side of the ball. You know damn well I'm going back to Jaren Jackson. Say what you want. I don't care, man. The fouls are just insane. Like he got off to a start. He had like 9 points, a rebound, a block, and assist in the first 5 minutes. And all right, here we go. And then boom, Jaren Jackson, more foul trouble. It's unbelievable. But it's another pace-up game. Pelicans play at the third fastest pace in the league. You could surely point out that this isn't exactly the front court that he's facing to stay out of trouble against in terms of Davis and Mirotic and such. But I'm crazy. I have problems. I will go back to Jaren Jackson. I love his upside. He's come down to 6,100 on DraftKings. I will still have some Jaren Jackson. And I think Mike Conley's in a good spot as well. What do you have in this game?
Not a ton. I mean, I think it is a nice spot for Memphis. It's just tough for me to get to these guys on this particular slate. Jackson on DraftKings in particular is fine. Still not a priority for me. Same goes for Conley. Gasol, I think you do see continue to lose a few minutes with Joakim Noah being there now, meaning like 32 to 34 instead of 36 to 38. But yeah, nothing that's a major priority for me here. That's
right, Ricky. Let it all roll on Jackson. I'm with you, man. Jaren Jackson, our boy, coming through. It's happening. But look. Here's the good thing about Jackson. If you're not playing him because he could get in foul trouble against the Pelicans, well, that's just dumb. If you're not playing him just because foul trouble is a big issue anyway, then yeah, that makes perfect sense. But it's not like, oh man, this front court will really get him into foul trouble. Any front court gets him into foul trouble. It's just whether or not he gets into foul trouble. So I'm not looking at it as a matchup thing. I'm looking at it as the Pelicans have a bottom ranked defense in the third play at the third fastest pace. So if he doesn't happen to get in foul trouble, because it's happened against good teams and bad teams, then Jaren Jackson has immense upside and will play 30 plus minutes. Do you want to touch on anything else in this game? I told you I like Jackson Conley. Kyle asked, what about a very low-owned Anthony Davis? We have his ownership actually higher than Westbrook projected.
I mean, I think it's going to depend on the site. He's 12.9 on FanDuel, which I think is egregious. but it's going to lower his ownership.
I still
For
don't
me,
even
it's
want to
just
pay for him there. I don't know.
right. He has to have such a monster game and beat this entire other group
Exactly.
of superstars by so much that I still doubt it's worth the ownership. On DraftKings, the price is fine, and I would expect him to be lower owned than Giannis. The big news, though, I think we're still waiting on, I at least haven't seen it, is what the Pels starting lineup is going to be. They mentioned Julius Randle could remain in the starting lineup. That would, I think, have a little bit of a negative impact on guys like Davis and on Holiday, just because Randle's a higher usage guy than Mirotic. I still don't really want to play any of them regardless, but that's, I think, obviously something we need to pay attention to.
Right, I agree. Sam Decker is being traded in that deal as well. This is what I said on the early bird. This is what Alvin Gentry should do. You have 96 minutes between Randle, Mirotic, and Davis. Those are the only guys that should get any minutes in the front court. That's 32 minutes apiece. If you give Anthony Davis 37 minutes per game, and you give Julius Randle 30 minutes a game, or 31 minutes a game, you can still give Mirotic 28 or 29 minutes. I think that's what you should do. Randle's playing two.
Yeah. That's basically what they do. It's just flipping Randle and Mirotic.
Well, yes, exactly. And I think that it should be flipped the other way.
Yeah. Well, they also, in some spots, and I think this is probably one of them, can give Mirotic time at the 3.
Right. Yeah, no question. Which means there's no reason not to give Randle the minutes he deserves, because he deserves them.
Well, I mean, he deserves 48 minutes a night, but.
Well, you understand.
Yeah.
You can't do that either. But I'm not going here. I respect Memphis' defense enough. It's a big enough slate, and they slow the game down. But I do like it for a few Memphis players. But yeah, Anthony Davis on DraftKings, where he's 11 flat, cheaper, or basically around the same price as all the other guys. I have no problem with that. I don't think I can pay that much for him on FanDuel, though. It's very tough. All right, 3 games to go. A couple of these we're not going to have so much to talk about, so don't worry, we'll make it. But before we do, I did want to let you know that, well, you know this already. It is the Awesemo 24 days of giveaway. Here, we're in the giving mood. We're in the Christmas spirit. All the way up until Christmas Eve, us at Awesemo are giving you, our loyal and beloved listeners and viewers, a chance to win free premium memberships to awesemo.com all the way up until Christmas Eve. We're giving away rest of season NFL packages. We got a lot. Giving something away every day, choosing someone at random. And then on Christmas Eve, we're going to give away a premium all-access annual membership, 365 days, full calendar year for free. It's an awesome thing to win. And it's pretty much, you don't have to do anything really to get it. All you have to do is like the video and leave a comment down below after the video ends. Not in the YouTube chat, but leave a comment down below. And you can do it on any show, whether it's the early bird, the strategy show, the deeper dive, live before lock. If you did it on all 4 of them each day, you'd be entered 4 times every day to win daily and for the final premium annual all access membership that we're going to do on December 24th. So leave a comment down below. You can say whatever you want. The John Wall comments were spectacular. You could tell me how many minutes will Jaren Jackson play before he racks up his first 2 fouls. That's a good one. I'm assuming we'll get a lot of 1s and 2s in there. Any comment will count. We appreciate you guys, and this is our way of giving back to you at awesemo.com. So thank you. All right. Lakers, San Antonio. Back home and home series here. The Spurs and Lakers, even money in San Antonio, 224 total. Talk to me. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but I do want to talk about Josh Hart, because Ingram was suspended for 4 games earlier this season, and Rondo was suspended for 3 of them. And we saw Hart play 36 minutes, 39 minutes, 32 minutes, and 26. One was an overtime game. One was a blowout where he only played 26 and no one played 30 minutes. But 2 of them actually came against the Spurs, interestingly enough, where he played 39 and 36 minutes. Very low usage, but I expect him to at least get the run here. What are you doing with the Lakers without Ingram? Yeah,
I like Josh Hart. I think he's one of the pretty good value plays on this slate, and it's nice because he's not a forward. So the minutes should be there. He's a guy that, like you said, he's not a high usage guy, but he does contribute in, a couple of different ways. He can rebound. So, and it is a bad defensive team here in San Antonio. Don't read into the last game. He only played like 13 and a half minutes. He was in massive foul trouble from the time he came into that game, but he was the first sub in for Brandon Ingram. He did start the second half. So I fully expect him to get a bunch of minutes here. I like him as a value play. I really like LeBron alongside Lonzo, without Rondo or Ingram on the floor this year. 35% usage, 35% assist percentage for LeBron, playing an absolute trash defense in San Antonio. I think that he's a pretty good option. And then I like Lonzo as well, especially on DraftKings at 5,700.
Fair enough. I'm not playing Lonzo because I don't like him, but I definitely like Josh Hart here. I expect to see big minutes, 30-plus minutes. As we've seen in the past. Unfortunately, when Ingram was out before, Rondo was also out for 3 of those games. So we got a very good idea of what the rotation looked like. KCP started the first one and then went straight to the bench. Hart started the other ones. I think Aldridge is a fine play here. He's the only player I have from San Antonio. Anything else, or can we move on? I think we can move on.
Yeah, Aldridge is my favorite. DeRozan and Gay are fine as well.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it's Hart and DeRozan. Those are the 2 guys in this game that I like the most. Look, if we don't get into everything, Live Before Lock is coming up next. Those boys can certainly help you out. And you can hit us up on Twitter. Our handles are right there, or in the Slack chat if you are a member, or if you wanted to try it out for a free week, you can do that as well using the promo code Deeper Dive. Phoenix, Miami, TJ Warren is questionable. Trevor Ariza is also questionable. But let's get to the important stuff here. Bam Adebayo with Hassan Whiteside out, tending to what will be a newborn. Maybe they already had it. I don't know, but he's out, and that's all that matters. I like Adebayo a lot here.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the highest owned player on the slate. He's my favorite player on the slate when you factor in price. There's just no way for me not to like him. We know how good the guy is at basketball. We know how good he is at producing on a permanent basis. The only thing that holds him back is that he shares minutes with Hassan Whiteside. Whiteside being out here just opens the door. I think the 30, 32 minutes from Adebayo should be very, very productive minutes, barring foul trouble or anything like that. So absolutely love him. Kelly Olynyk, I think, is a fine play to a lesser extent. I definitely prefer Adebayo, but Olynyk I have playing around 26 minutes here. I expect him to get the rest of the minutes at the 5, along with some minutes at the 4. So I think he's a perfectly fine play. Winslow should play around 30 minutes. I like him less than the 2 guys I just mentioned.
All right. Yeah. Just another thing. Adebayo has played 12 minutes with Whiteside all season long, which means that he is the clear primary beneficiary. Not to say Olynyk doesn't benefit, but Adebayo is the clear beneficiary here. You don't really need to say much more than that. Richardson I like on FanDuel. It's a weak small forward position. And then Winslow, as you mentioned, you can sprinkle in as well. I don't have an issue with that. Goran Dragic expected to return, though, so keep that in mind. Ellington is out as well. On the Phoenix side, look, if I'm playing Okobo or if I'm playing Melton, I'm playing Okobo because he's starting and because Kokoschka plays the hot hand anyway. Okobo is way cheaper than everybody else. And then I'll just ask you quickly, what are your thoughts if Warren and Ariza are out? Are you going back to Josh Jackson?
Josh Jackson's fine, especially on FanDuel at power forward. I get some of him, but there's nothing I'm prioritizing from Phoenix. It's just a team that I would have some of those guys in like 150 lineups, but they're just not that good at basketball. They're still running a deep rotation, and it's just a mess on a slate where there's actual good value.
All right, and I'm sorry, guys, that we're running out of time. I'm going to let Adam, we're up against it here. I'm going to let Adam cruise through this last game quickly, Milwaukee, Golden State, and I can tell you this much. I very much like Giannis and Middleton, and that's where I'm at. And Golden State, anyone can erupt. So go ahead, close it out. We got to be out of here soon.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Giannis. I do think there's a difference between the 2 sites. On FanDuel, I think he'll have plenty of ownership, and I think he's a fine play, but he is $1,200 more than LeBron, who I like a lot. So that makes it kind of tough. But on DraftKings, where everyone's like lumped together, I think he's the best play out of that group. Bledsoe and Middleton, where you're not playing Giannis, they're a nice way to get leverage in a game that should have a ton of points. You just play those guys and hope that they're the ones that contribute, and Giannis kind of takes a backseat for some reason. On the other side, Curry's my favorite Golden State play. I do like Durant, but it's just tough to prioritize him over the other small forward options on this slate. Kevon Looney should play, 26 to 28 minutes, but I would put him pretty clearly behind Bam Adebayo at that price tag.
All right, that'll do it for us. We're happy to answer any and all questions as well if there's anything we didn't get to. And fret not, coming up next, Eddie and Chris, Live Before Lock, taking you till 7. Hit us with a thumbs up if you enjoy our content. subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and comment below if you want to get entered into the 24 days of giveaway. We love you guys. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here on Monday. Have a great weekend.